I want you to take a quick second and just look down at the shirt or, the sweater or dress you're wearing right now. Really look at the physical details of it.
Yeah, notice the way the collar sits against your neck, right?
Exactly. Or look at how the fabric naturally drapes across your shoulders. Even the exact deliberate placement of the buttons down the front. Now realize that before that garment was a physical object, before you could actually pull it off a hanger in your closet this morning, it was nothing but a completely abstract thought floating around in someone's head.
It really is a strange thing to consider when you put it like that, because we spend our whole lives in clothes, but we rarely think about their origin point.
Right, we just put them on.
Yeah, we usually only engage with fashion at the very end of its life cycle. We see the glamorous runway shows or the perfectly lit mannequins in a retail store window.
Or just the racks at your local boutique.
Exactly. But the actual heavy lifting of fashion design, the real foundational work that all happens long before a single piece of fabric is ever cut.
Which is the entire reason we are doing this deep dive today. I was reading through this incredibly dense, fascinating stack of industry research we got on fashion illustration services.
Oh, yes, specifically looking at the creative engine behind companies like Apparelizer, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it struck me how this one specific service acts as like the ultimate bridge. It is the literal mechanism that takes human imagination and forces it into a physical reality that we can wear.
That's a great way to frame it.
So today, we are going to unpack that bridge. We're getting into how this process actually works behind the scenes, why it makes or breaks a clothing business, and some of the wild futuristic trends shaping the illustration industry in 2026.
I mean, the core thing to understand here is that fashion is fundamentally a visual language. It communicates personality, status, and style.
Right.
But an idea can't speak if it's trapped inside a designer's imagination. You need a translator to get it out into the world.
Yeah.
So a professional fashion illustration service isn't just, drawing a pretty picture.
It's way more technical than that.
Way more. It is a highly technical translation service that turns fleeting concepts into these detailed artistic maps.
Let's pause on that idea of a map, actually, because it gets at the heart of why you can't just jump from a daydream straight to a sewing machine.
You really can't.
Right. If you're a designer and you have this incredible vision for a jacket, you can't just walk into a factory and start aggressively pointing at bolts of cloth.
I was trying to think of a good way to describe this. It's a lot like building a house without a blueprint.
Oh,
You
for
know,
sure.
like, sure, you have a giant pile of bricks, but where does the front door go? Or maybe it's like composing a symphony. You might hum a staggeringly beautiful melody in your head all day long, but if you want an orchestra of 80 different musicians to actually play it together, you have to write down the sheet music.
Yeah, the violins need to know exactly when to come in. The brass section needs to know their exact volume. Exactly. The illustration is the sheet music for the clothes. But since fashion is so tactile, it moves and flows, how does a completely flat illustration successfully communicate something like garment flow to a manufacturer?
Well, that's exactly why it is a specialized service. It shows the why and how of the garment's construction, ensuring the visionary and the manufacturer are speaking the exact same visual language.
So it's not just a sketch.
No, not at all. The artistic representation has to showcase the garment's internal construction, the specific color codes, the exact fabrics being used, the accessories, the textures, all before production even thinks about beginning.
And looking at our source material, the applications for this are incredibly wide. It's not just for haute couture.
No, definitely not. This level of technical illustration is used for intricate bridal wear, everyday streetwear, highly functional sportswear, children's clothing.
Even custom outfits for individual private wardrobe.
Exactly. It's the sheet music for the sweatpants you lounge in, just as much as it is for a red carpet gown.
That is wild. And going through our sources, there are 4 key business benefits that keep popping up as to why these illustration services are completely non-negotiable for a brand.
Yeah, the first one being better design visualization.
But when they say visualization, I don't think they just mean making sure it looks pretty, right?
No, absolutely not. Visualization in this context is about applied physics and human anatomy. It's about understanding proportions on a three-dimensional form.
Like how it actually sits on a body.
Right. A designer might sketch a massive, think about the actual logistics of modern manufacturing. A visionary designer might be sitting in a studio in London or New York. The pattern maker, the person who figures out the geometric shapes of the fabric, they might be in Italy.
And the actual manufacturing facility sewing it together might be in Vietnam or Bangladesh.
Exactly. They likely do not speak the same language.
Right. I was actually just imagining a hypothetical scenario reading this. Imagine a designer in London scribbling a rough, loose doodle of a, quote, flowy summer dress and just emailing it to a factory
Oh,
overseas.
that's a recipe for disaster.
It is, because without a technical illustration, that factory might interpret flowy as needs maximum fabric, and suddenly they ship back a prototype that looks like a literal camping tent.
And that happens far more often than you'd think in amateur setups. But a detailed professional illustration acts as a universal language. It clearly states, visually, exactly where a scene goes, how deep a pocket is constructed, or how stiff a collar should stand.
There's just no room for interpretation.
None.
Which completely validates the third benefit they list, which is faster product development. Because if everyone is reading the exact same universal visual language, you're inherently reducing costly revisions.
Yeah. You aren't making that tent prototype, realizing it's ruined, throwing away all that expensive silk and starting over from scratch. You are saving massive amounts of production time and capital.
And the fourth benefit ties all of this back to the business side professional brand presentation.
Right. These high-quality illustrations are the literal assets that elevate a brand's lookbooks, their portfolios, and their websites.
Because if you're a startup clothing brand trying to secure funding, walking into an investor pitch with a stunning professional illustration commands a completely different level of respect than walking in with some rough pencil scribbles on a notepad.
It changes the entire conversation.
Okay, I want to push back on this a little bit, or at least dig into the mechanics of it, because
Yeah.
fashion is inherently tactile. It moves.
Right.
When you walk, a dress swishes around your ankles. When you reach up for something on a shelf, a tailored jacket stretches across your back. So how in the world does a flat, two-dimensional drawing successfully communicate movement to that factory worker who needs to build it?
Well, that is the exact threshold that separates basic drawing from a specialized fashion illustration service.
Mm.
A professional illustrator isn't just creating a static image. They use highly specific artistic techniques to imply physics.
Imply physics. How so?
For example, if they need to show that a jacket is tight and structured, they will draw sharp, rapid tension lines radiating from the buttons to show the stress on the fabric.
Oh, wow. So they are literally drawing the physical strain on the material.
Yes. Or if they're drawing a heavy wool coat, they use dense cross-hatching and deep shading to visually communicate weight and thickness.
And for something lighter?
Conversely, if they're drawing a lightweight silk blouse, they might use smooth, sweeping watercolor washes and soft, curved shadow lines to show how the fabric pools and ripples like liquid.
That is fascinating. So the shading itself is a set of instructions.
Exactly. It ensures that the designer who dreamed it up and the manufacturer who has to physically sew it are totally aligned on how the garment should behave in the real world.
So let's talk about the life cycle of how that actually happens. Where does the pen literally hit the paper? Our sources outline this incredible 5-step journey of an illustration.
Yeah, and it starts with concept development, which, surprisingly, involves absolutely no drawing.
Not at all.
Nope. This is purely the gathering phase. Designers and illustrators have to sit down and figure out the destination before they start driving.
So they're discussing the overarching themes, who the target audience is, the trends.
And just what general feeling they're trying to evoke.
Right. Only after that do we get to step 2, which is the initial sketches. And from what I understand, this is just about getting the skeleton down.
Yeah, the focus isn't on the tiny details here. It's just establishing the broad garment shapes, the general body proportions, and the big picture styling elements.
You need to make sure the core silhouette works before you invest time in the details.
Exactly. But once that skeleton is approved, you enter the third phase, refinement.
Oh.
And this is arguably the most critical stage of the entire process.
This is where they add the fabric textures, the intricate stitching details, the accessories, and those realistic folds we were just talking about, right?
That's the one.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Think about a really beautiful, spontaneous, free-flowing initial sketch. It has all this kinetic, artistic energy to it. Doesn't rigorously detailing every single stitch, buttonhole, and fold risk killing the magic of that original idea?
I hear what you're saying.
Like, doesn't it just turn it into a sterile engineering schematic?
It's a completely valid concern, and honestly, a lot of young designers struggle with this. But I would argue that the refinement phase isn't where the magic dies. It's where the magic actually becomes wearable.
Huh.
Think about it. Without defining the stitching, the seams, and the fold details, The garment simply cannot exist in reality. A magical floating piece of fabric with no seams is just a ghost. It's unmakeable.
So you have to sacrifice a little bit of the fantasy to make it real.
Not necessarily sacrifice, but translate.
Yeah.
The true art of a professional fashion illustrator is maintaining that original aesthetic charm and energy, while covertly injecting it with all the technical accuracy required to build it.
Ah, I see.
You need the charm to sell the idea to an investor, but you need the rigorous technical accuracy to hand to the pattern maker so they know exactly where the pieces connect.
You're holding the tension between art and engineering on a single piece of paper. I get it now. Which leads into the fourth step, the color rendering phase.
Yes, this is where they apply not just the colors, but the complex lighting, the shading, and the fabric effects.
It's where it really pops off the page.
And then finally, step 5 is the final presentation. The completed artwork is delivered in pristine, high-resolution digital formats, ready to be deployed as manufacturing guidelines or marketing centerpieces.
Speaking of digital formats, this is where the research gets really interesting regarding where the industry is at in 2026. Because there is this massive duality in the mediums being used today. You have this tug of war between digital and traditional.
Yeah, and the medium chosen heavily dictates the final emotional feel. Digital illustration, using tablets and advanced software, offers just unparalleled flexibility.
Right, you get incredibly vibrant colors, lightning-fast delivery, and most importantly, it's editable.
Exactly. If a client looks at a completed illustration and suddenly decides they want to see the dress in sapphire blue instead of ruby red, a digital illustrator can execute that change in seconds. It is built for modern e-commerce.
But then on the other side, traditional hand-drawn illustration is still thriving. The sources explicitly note that hand-drawn art, like using real watercolors, markers, and pencils, provides this artistic charm and timeless elegance that a computer just can't perfectly replicate.
It's highly sought after for luxury branding, haute couture, and collector portfolios. And what's fascinating about 2026 is that the most successful modern designers aren't choosing one camp over the other.
They're mixing them.
Yes, actively combining both methods. They might sketch in watercolor by hand, scan it, and then use digital tools to refine the colors and add technical layovers.
I love that approach. It's like a filmmaker choosing to shoot a movie on vintage, grainy 35mm film to capture that beautiful soul, but then taking that film and editing it on a state-of-the-art supercomputer.
That is a brilliant analogy.
You get the irreplaceable soul of the old world combined with the raw speed of the new world.
And if you look at the specific trends shaping fashion illustration right now, you see this exact collision of high-tech and deep human artistry everywhere. For instance, our guide highlights a massive surge in AI-assisted design inspiration.
Wait, how does that actually work in practice? Are they just having AI design the clothes?
Not designing the final product, no, but generating the initial mood boards. Imagine a designer sitting at their desk with an iPad. Instead of spending 3 weeks sketching rough ideas, they might use an AI tool to instantly generate 100 different exploratory silhouettes based on a simple text prompt.
Okay, so the AI is just a catalyst for ideas during that first concept phase.
Exactly. It acts as a rapid brainstorming partner.
Got it. But then there's also the 3D garment visualization trend. What does that look like for a designer?
That is where the tech gets truly mind-bending. Instead of a flat drawing, designers are using software to create a three-dimensional illustration. They can practically spin the garment around on their screen.
Oh, wow.
They could apply a virtual physics engine to see how the fabric would theoretically move if a digital wind blew across it.
It sounds almost like video game design.
It really is similar.
Yeah.
We're also seeing this tech being used to visualize sustainable fashion concepts before a single scrap of real material is wasted, and even creating fully digital runway presentations that replace physical shows entirely.
But what I find so interesting is that right alongside all that futuristic 3D modeling and AI generation, the 2026 trends also highlight a massive resurgence in minimalist line art and traditional watercolor illustrations.
Yes.
Plus, something I think is incredibly important, a major focus on inclusive body representation in these illustrations.
The shift toward inclusive body representation is vital, not just ethically, but technically.
Technically, how so?
Well, if we go back to our idea of the illustration as the sheet music, the garment you are building behaves entirely differently depending on the physical structure of the body wearing it.
Oh,